Welcome to the Go Beyond podcast. I'm your host, Charles Scott. On this podcast, I interview exceptional leaders navigating ambition, resilience, and growth. The goal is to help you go beyond your perceived limits. As always, this show is sponsored by the 90% rule, helping leaders escape the grind of the ambitious person's trap and instead spend over 90% of your finite time and energy on things you are good at, you like, and you find meaningful. What's the ambitious person's trap, you ask? That's when you trash your physical health and emotional health in pursuit of your professional goals. The 90% rule is the antidote. Go to executive mentor charlescott.com to learn more. Okay, on today's show, our guest is Nick Woodhead, founder of GPTree, an AI context management platform that helps people branch conversations, compare answers across multiple AI models, and merge best thinking without losing context. So welcome to the show. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you about GPTree in a minute. But before we do, Nick, I always love to start with this question. If you could go back in time and talk with your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate being part of the podcast. That's a great question. I think I'm going to answer that from a non-business perspective. So I think I've spent so much of my career heads down, deep in work. And being from England and having moved to the US, one of the things I regret insanely is not having traveled more when I was in Europe. And especially now having a family and 3 daughters, going back to England or going back and traveling Europe is just crazy expensive. Whereas when I was growing up, 18 in England, I could have gone anywhere in Europe for less than $100. And I really wished I had done that. I think second to that, I moved over to New York to play lacrosse in a semi-professional league here. I think if I could go back, probably have to go back earlier than 18, but I would probably have played hockey instead of lacrosse. I would have probably got a little bit more life out of it.
That's great. Did you play on Long Island? I'm just curious because I know you were on Long Island for a while.
I did. I played for the Long Island Bud Light team for 3 years.
Oh, great. Okay, good. So I noticed in your background you were there in Huntington and a couple other areas too. So great. Okay, well, that's wonderful advice. I will say, yeah, when you're 18, basically all you have to do is not die, right? So you should just don't starve to death. The bar is low, and so yeah, traveling and just eating whatever you can find probably will work. So, no, I love it. Well, okay, well let's talk business. So tell me about GPTree. How did it start, and what is your vision? And maybe explain the name too, GPTree. It's a clever name.
Yeah, GPTree was really a play on ChatGPT and the ability to branch off conversations and have side conversations. And it all started about 2 years ago. I've been using ChatGPT since the very first version, like version 3, before anybody even knew about it. And one of the things that always frustrated me when I had a simple question to ask about a response, I had to ask it in line. And the more I did that, the more polluted the context becomes, the more hallucinations you get. And so with GPTree, I created essentially a way to more efficiently branch context, have side conversations without polluting your main thread, and without having to re-explain yourself all the time. So it ultimately started off as a UI interface. And then I was working on another project called Cogent, which was an agent orchestration framework. And I ended up combining these two concepts really together, and GPTree really became more of a context infrastructure platform where clean context is really the ultimate core product. And branching ultimately just became the interface for it. Yeah, I mean, we've been building for about 2 years. We launched in beta in January with about 500 users. We were all primarily personal contacts, people I've worked with in the industry. And from January to June, we grew to about 3,500 users. We were going to launch the product in June, and we decided instead to make a pivot into enterprise. So we pulled back on the launch. We did a soft launch and really kind of focused on building that enterprise product.
Yeah.
But since June, we've grown to over 8,000 users as of last week. So it's really gaining traction even on the consumer side.
Yeah, because that's what the question I was going to ask was who is the typical customer of yours? Because I know when I looked through your background and we talked earlier, you have a lot of enterprise background with enterprise software development, right? And so I wondered if you were going to go that route, but are you finding traction just among consumers as well? And so you're having both as targets, or what do you think makes the most sense for you when you think about your business strategy?
So we are definitely pivoting to enterprise now. We
Hmm.
started off as really a consumer app, um, primarily because I was trying to bootstrap this through my agency and use my internal team to do the development and basically bring this to market. But it was just very apparent, and really kind of the clicking point for me was when I attended the AI agent conference in New York City in May.
Hmm.
And I just saw how much traction there was in the enterprise space. And given my background, like you said, it just made sense that, that ultimately had to become the primary business strategy.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Yeah. No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, we actually just began our first fundraising round for the enterprise product, and we're trying to grow the consumer product alongside it. And what's really nice is that kind of sits on top of our context orchestration framework, which gives a really nice use case and kind of proof of concept, since it's being used now by 8,000 users, is really helping us on the enterprise
Mhm.
side just to make sure that we get things right.
Yeah. It's interesting because you also founded Translate Tech, and I'll date myself here. I worked for 14 years at Intel Corporation, so I was back there in the 90s, kind of during the Andy Grove era, for those of you who know who Andy Grove is. And I remember a particular moment. Intel was innovating the front side bus, and this was basically what would connect the central processing unit, the CPU, the microprocessor, with the chipset. And so it was a bit of a bottleneck, right? And so the front side bus, would go to the North Bridge, is what was the part of the chipset it would interact with. And Intel was able to increase it from 100 megahertz to 133 megahertz. And the engineering team, there was a lot of excitement about this. And I remember this debate about how to publicize it. And there was a business guy in the room who said, I'll tell you exactly how we publicize it. You tell the animator at Pixar that you're going to render this animated scene 3 minutes faster than it typically takes you. And that I remember the engineering guys being like, wait, what? And that was a classic example of the engineering guys were like 133 megahertz, and a normal person has no idea what you're talking about. Even when you say front side bus, right? I said North Bridge. I mean, all like chipset. Like people are like, what are you talking about? And then the guy's just like, you'll render this animation 3 minutes faster. And so, and when you said Translate Tech, the purpose, when I read about it, it said you help developers and engineers and business leaders avoid miscommunication. And that conversation came to mind. Is this kind of the spirit of what you were trying to do? Of how engineers can talk over or make it more complicated for business people, and they need it dumbed down in a way, or just clarified. What was the problem statement, I guess, you were working on? And does my anecdote even have any relevance to what you're doing?
I think you pretty much just nailed it there. The one correction I would probably make, and this is where most people go wrong, is dumbing it down. They think by dumbing it down, it helps translate it better. But as you said, like explaining that you could render that um, animation in 3 minutes less, that's not dumbing it down. That's translating it into a language that they understand.
Yeah.
And that's really where the gap is. So with Translate Tech, I founded that company earlier last year in 2025. And I saw the gap. I mean, I've experienced this through my whole career, and I know that so many people struggle with it, both on the tech side, being able to translate to business, but also on the business side, being able to translate requirements back to the technical teams. And what made it really obvious and something that I really wanted to jump into was that now we're moving into AI. Translating those requirements to prompts is really no difference than trying to translate requirements between business and tech. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I saw the opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to build Translate Tech, and ultimately it became a distribution system for GPTree. You
Mm-hmm.
asked before about my kind of my primary audience for GPTree. And given my engineering background and business background, those were really my two core ICPs that I would try to focus on when we started building the product.
Mhm.
And Translate Tech gave me a way to be able to hit both of those audiences in one kind of consolidated, video series, and be able to give back to the community at the same time, which is something that I always wanted to do.
Yeah. Yes, such an interesting problem statement too. So even now, outside of the technology world, everyone, because we're all interacting with AI, needs some help with this translation. So I love what you're doing. It's really interesting. Okay, one final question here is, as an entrepreneur and business leader. So now let's go to you personally. And you mentioned I know you have three daughters, too, and so you're trying to be present with your family, right? Have you found it difficult to pursue your professional goals and also take good care of yourself physically and emotionally? Because many of the executives I work with have fallen into the ambitious person's trap, right, where they undermine their physical health and emotional health. Have you been able to avoid this trap? And if so, how?
I mean, I think the trap is unavoidable in this industry. Um,
Yeah.
going back to the beginning, 2009, I actually launched another company. I was working full time. My first daughter was just born. I was still running my agency as well on the side. I was coaching lacrosse, playing lacrosse. I mean, there's just so much there. Ultimately, I gave up coaching because I was spending too much time with other people's kids and not enough time with my own kids. And I mean, that continued for years, where, I mean, I was always there for my kids. Every
Mhm.
doctor's appointment, every play date, anywhere I could be with my kids, I was there, but I was physically present. I wasn't mentally present.
Yeah.
And it took me a long, long time to realize that. And I think really what made me realize it was when, as my daughters started getting older and the relationship was really just not where it should be. And with my wife too. I mean, I was always there, but probably never gave her the real time without being,
Mhm.
mentally disconnected and thinking about other problems. It's very difficult when I see somebody doing something inefficient. My brain just automatically switches to, how could we solve that?
This is the
Whether
engineer in you.
doesn't matter where we are. So it took me a long time to realize that, and probably around like 2018 was where I really kind of step back and really tried to be more present mentally as well as physically,
Yeah.
and prioritize my own health a little bit more. And I think it goes in waves. Like I'll get good at it and then it falls off. And actually another um, reason that I started Translate Tech, and one of the reasons where a lot of the content came from and a lot of the writing that I did during that, was trying to prepare myself for this GPTree venture.
Mhm.
So I knew that I had to refresh my knowledge of how to be present and practice that. And I did very well, like for 2025, throughout most of the build of GPTree,
Mhm.
um, really just by doing a lot of reading, refreshing memory, making it like a priority to prioritize health and relationships.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now, within the last 6 months since we launched GPTree, it's still going the other way. And as much as I prepared,
Good.
as
Yeah.
much as I consciously was aware of it,
Yeah.
still find myself now slipping back into the trap.
Yeah.
And that goes back to my original point. I think it's unavoidable in this industry.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone. I mean, that's why talk about the intro of this podcast is all about this. And I think what's wonderful is how intentional you are, and you were able to achieve it for a minute, and then you get sucked back into it. And so I think for everyone I work with and people listening to this podcast, I think we all struggle with the aspiration and then the reality. And I think conceptual understanding is one thing, and putting it into practice is another. And there, you have to kind of prove it again every day, right? But I love your goal, that you're clear about it, and being fully present. Is fully present means not just physically present, but there with your attention as well. I think that's a wonderful thing to aspire to. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so so for people who are interested in you and in GPTree, what's the best way to either get in touch with you or to find out about it?
So you can check out GPTree at gp-tree.com. Oh, we actually just launched our new mobile app today, which you can download on the App Store too. You can also find the link on the website if you don't find it in the App Store. And then please feel free to follow me or connect on LinkedIn. I publish a lot of articles there, both for Translate Tech and my personal journey, trying to help people out in different ways there. So I try and give back primarily through LinkedIn.
Perfect. So if they look Nick Woodhead, GPTree on LinkedIn, they'll find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. So as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the 90% rule, helping leaders escape the grind of the ambitious person's trap and instead spend over 90% of your finite time and energy on things you're good at, you like, and you find meaningful. To learn more, go to executivementorcharlescott.com. And until next episode, go beyond your perceived limits and live the 90% life.